What's happening, everybody? It is Zim again, back with another deck profile. This one is going to be premium this time, and it's going to be one of my other favorite units, Coral. Coral has been one of my favorite community units to play around with, and I found a premium deck list that I was comfortable with and I wanted to do. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, everyone, let's get into the deck list, shall we? First, we're going to start with the star of the show herself, Aurora Star Coral. I choose this one because of the fact of her on-stride skill / on-place skill. Both of those are in conjunction, where if she's on-placed or when you stride into a Coral unit, you will put a card from your hand into Soul and draw 2 cards and gain the red text, which will affect either when she's on-placed or whatever you stride into. They gain 5k. The Vanguard gains 5k for every 2 cards of Coral in your Soul. So basically, you can get very big numbers very fast for how many Corals in your Soul. So as you are going through the deck, your job is to put as many Corals in your Soul as possible. Now, of course, to help out with that, I added Shangri-La Coral into that mix for that reason, so that way I can add better for the numbers. It helps out with that factor of getting more Corals in the Soul. Not really to use her as a ride idea. Now, as far as the grade 2 Coral, I chose to go for the older version of her for her auto skill. Her auto skill is an on-hit skill, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, all we gotta do is guard that, right? Well, the way you make that work better in your benefit is to use this card right here, Charming Make. Her ability is, when placed, if your Vanguard is Coral, has Coral in its name, counterblast 1 until the end of turn. When your opponent would call cards from their hand, they have to call 2. So it battle doors, and the best part about it is you can do it on grade 2, so it's early. So in short terms, what you would do, you would ride to this, call this, and literally call a back row to help you out in that situation, and literally swing her first, swing Vanguard next, and they can choose to drop 2 cards, which next them for that turn, and you can basically take apart their hand the next turn, or they're gonna let it hit, and then you just get to return those cards back and reuse this over again. Love that. Then, of course, the other grade 2s that I chose, the grade 2 Martola, because of the fact that she works with Coral in conjunction. When she's placed, you can put a Coral on your rear guard or from your hand in the Soul and just draw a card, so it replaces your hand. And on top of it, when she's in Soul, if you have 3 or more cards, you can just pop her out of Soul and draw a card, and you can do it as early as grade 1. So if you got plenty of Soul where you can pull that stunt, yeah, go ahead and just pull her out and just draw a card. Helps out for that situation. Then, of course, I also have the Rye Corrector in the deck, because there are times when you whiff trying to get the right Coral or the right pieces, and this just helps out with that situation. And it's an awesome card to also just return cards back to hand. Now, as far as grade 1s, of course, we're going to go with the V version of Coral, because I like her ability of you draw a card and put a card into Soul, and her rear guard ability is very good too as well when you just want a bigger number. So she can become a 13k for herself as long as your Vanguard is Coral. So it's just a good, I prefer this grade 1 Coral instead of the older Coral. So it's like a mix of the new Coral and the old Coral to make this deck work. Now, when you don't have this as your target, there's another target that I would choose, which would be this card, the Direct. I'm not gonna say the extra name to go with that because I about said the wrong thing. But either way, she's a good card as well. Her deal is when you place her on Van or rear, you can look at the top 5 for a Coral, reveal it. If you did, you get to add it to hand and then put a card from your hand in the Soul. So if you're looking for a certain piece that you need for the Coral itself, or you need to put a card in the Soul and you just so happen to see a Coral, just go ahead and grab the Coral and then put that piece you need to put in the Soul. Prime example, let's say you wanted to put this in the Soul and use the ability to pop it out and draw a card. That's what it's for. Then, of course, we run Aqua for the PGs, reason being because Aqua's ability doesn't ditch the card. It puts the card in Soul, which helps fuel Coral. So the more Corals you get in Soul, the easier it is to hit bigger numbers when you go to your start swinging with her. Then, of course, when it comes to your starter, I went with the V Coral grade 0 for the fact of more cards to hand. So when you go into the grade 1 coral, you can just literally say, okay, draw, then draw. So you got 2 choices of any of those 2 cards or whatever's in your hand to put in the soul. Now, as far as triggers that we're going to use Honoka for one of the crit triggers. Reason being, her ability is when she's in soul or when she's in your hand, you can just ditch her or pop her out of soul to look at the top 5 for a coral, and you can choose to put it in your hand or put it in your soul. So if you're missing a piece to put in soul, that's what she's for. If you need coral herself, you can just add it to get that grade 3 coral to add to hand. So it helps fish for what you need. Fish, of course, the one thing I said, to get what you need basically to add to hand or to soul, so if you're missing any pieces there. And then of course you got the Stride Fighter crits that always get to have when you need the Stride Fighter crit, so definitely. Then I'm running the Loris crit to just add extra crits, and of course just extra pressure, because when you hit those, that's lovely. And also for the fact that if you hit those in damage, you get the draw card, so that definitely helps out with that factor. Of course, we're gonna run the grade 3 heals, because grade 3 heals definitely help against early hitting decks, so you can just kind of slow them down and deal with the situation from there. We're running 1 stand trigger of Kruk because that's the only one we can run for that factor, because for the limit for it. But it's a very good card to put in coral for the fact of you can just keep doing multiple attacks, helps get extra numbers when you need it, and on top of it, when you just hit a stand trigger out of nowhere, it just surprises your opponent when you're just like, well, that's another attack to worry about. Then of course for the last trigger, of course, is the over trigger. I went with the generic over trigger for Lyrical, for the fact of all rear guards gain an extra 10, so that's bigger numbers for me and problems for the opponent. Now as far as strides go, your opener, if you get to go second, would be of course Arcadia Star Coral. The whole point is to help you set up. That's the whole point of her. She'll return a card. You get to choose any card from your deck and just put it in the soul. If you got any units on board, any rear guards on board, they gain the extra 2, and then she gains 10. So when you go into the grade 3 and stride into this, you got the red text ability plus the extra 10k. So she just becomes a very big number to deal with. So what you would do that plus the Battle Door grade 2 that I brought up. You put those 2 together and literally just make it where you just make your opponent drop hand or take damage. And then of course the finisher of the deck, which would be Frontier Star Coral. Basically the whole point of this card is to give you multi-attack. So you can basically swing out, and then use our ability to return the whole board and call 2 more cards. So you can just keep constantly having big numbers and keep a hand size without worrying about losing hand and everything on that factor. Now stride tech option into this would be Heltrata. Reason why I run Heltrata in this deck is because if let's say you went second and you have to basically play catch up on the lines of that. If you place the grade 3 that turn and give her red text and then stride into this unit, after you use her ability to move her back, the red text stays for Coral herself. So in short turns, the big numbers just increase after you do the whole Heltrata turn for herself, and then go back down to the grade 3 Coral. So it goes from just swinging regular to going back down to Coral and getting big numbers, where they're sitting there saying, oh, I gotta guard harder now. And the best part is, after you swing her, after you swing Heltrata herself, if she hitting triggers, just give them to the rear guards that are going to be sitting there from the side, and then you just swing the Vanguard after that and hit any more triggers, so they just get bigger. So bigger numbers helps with the situation, and it works out with the red text situation. And lastly but not least, of course, we got the G Guardians. We're running 2 Leonas to help out of bouncing back cards and everything. Running 2 Sandys to help out if I have a decent sized hand. That helps out with that factor. So the whole point of her is just, if you have a big hand, use her to say, hey, I got guard. And then of course we got one Citron if I need to just call a card that I need on the board for any situation, and then give my Vanguard 10. It helps for setup for any situation on that factor. But yeah, basically the situation that you would go for the grade 2 turn, like I said, would be the grade 2 Coral, and then you will go into this card for that factor. So basically your board will look something like this, just to give like a quick example. This is what your board will look like in that situation. So literally after you activate her counterblast for that, you will just swing her first, then swing this column, which would be a 10. She'll be a 10 if you have the grade 1 in soul, and then you got an 8 in the back, so a 18, which usually means you get if you hit a trigger, that puts you at 28 for that type of number. So most of the time your opponent is going to take that instead of just dropping 2 cards when that Battledore ability is active. And all you gotta do is just, if it hits, return this and return this, and you get to reuse these cards over for the next turn, which saves you from losing hand. And I just love that little combo. It's something I came up with after playing with the deck multiple times. But that would be my deck profile for Coral for you. Alright everybody, that's the deck profile for you. I hope you liked it. It's just one of my favorite decks to talk about, and if you think there should be something I could change for the deck, please leave it in the comments. If you liked what you saw, I'm gonna keep making more. I'm also gonna have some game content coming very soon, so don't worry about that. I promise you I'll keep it up. Till then, catch you later.